The Nekyia, the name Greek scholars give to Book 11 of the Odyssey, is the poem's longest and most formally unusual episode. Odysseus is sitting in a Phaeacian palace narrating his wanderings, and the entire underworld journey is told in his own voice, as a story within a story. It is the most sustained first-person account in the poem, and what it contains is considerably larger and stranger than its reputation suggests. The dead come to drink. Only blood restores them, temporarily, to speech and memory. The rest of the time they are shades, diminished, insubstantial, capable of little. Homer's Underworld has no circles, no geography of punishment, no moral architecture. It is simply where the dead are, and what they are is less than what they were. The great and the obscure inhabit the same grey dark. This is an honest and unsparing vision of death, and it is the Odyssey's most serious passage. Odysseus has come for a reason. Circe sent him here to consult the prophet Tiresias before he can go any further toward home. Everything else he encounters in the Nekyia is, in one sense, what happens while he is waiting for and acting on that consultation. In another sense, it is the episode's real subject. Tiresias drinks the blood and speaks. He tells Odysseus about the obstacle ahead, Poseidon's anger, which will not relent until Odysseus has done something very specific. He warns about the castle of the sun on Thrinacia. Do not touch them. Do not let the crew touch them, or everyone dies and the ship is lost. He describes the suitors in Ithaca and gives Odysseus in outline what he will need to do when he gets there. All of this is practical and necessary, but the prophecy does not end with the homecoming. Tiresias continues, and what he says next is the strangest and most beautiful thing any prophet says in the poem. After Ithaca, Odysseus must travel again. He must take an oar on his shoulder and walk inland away from the sea, away from everything that has defined his life, until he meets a people who know nothing of the sea, who've never tasted salt, who look at the oar on his shoulder and mistake it for a winnowing fan. There he must plant the oar in the ground and make offerings to Poseidon. Then, and only then, is the enmity resolved. The death Tiresias promises at the end of all of this is the gentlest possible. Death will come to Odysseus from the sea, in old age, surrounded by prosperous people. Homer's Greek makes it ambiguous whether death will come from the sea or out of it. Later traditions read this as a weapon made from a fish, or telegonos, the son Circe bore him, killing him with a spear tipped with a stingray spine. But that is later. What Tiresias gives him here is the promise of an ending that is neither heroic nor ignoble, simply old and gentle and arriving in its own time. The wanderings do not end with Ithaca. They end somewhere in the interior of a country without salt. The first shade Odysseus recognizes among the dead is his mother. Anticleia was alive when he sailed for Troy. He held her back from the blood until Tiresias had spoken because the ritual protocol required it, and because Circe had told him to follow it exactly. This is simply what had to be done. When she drinks and her mind is restored, she tells him about Ithaca. His father Laertes is alive, but barely. His son is grown. Penelope is faithful and waiting. She died not of illness, but of longing, of grief at his absence. He tries to embrace her. 3 times he reaches, and 3 times she slips through his arms like a shadow or a dream. The sinews no longer hold the flesh and the bones. What was a person is now smoke and flutter. He cannot hold what is no longer there. He has been travelling for 20 years, and this is how he learns she has died. by reaching for her and finding nothing. The Nekyia contains considerably more than 3 encounters. Before and alongside the great shades, Homer gives us a catalogue. Heroic women, mythological sinners, figures still engaged in their living activities as if death had simply continued them. Among the women, Tyro, who loved the river, Antiope, Alcmene, mother of Heracles, Leda, Ariadne, whose thread brought Theseus out of the labyrinth, and Epicaste, Homer's name for Jocasta, the mother and wife of Oedipus. Homer's version of the story is notably compressed. She hangs herself immediately on discovering the truth, while Oedipus continues to rule Thebes despite everything. The Sophoclean elaboration, the blinding, the exile, the daughters, is not here. Homer gives Jocasta 4 lines and moves on. The contrast with what Sophocles will make of the same material is one of the most instructive comparisons in the tradition. Ajax, son of Telamon, is present with Achilles, and he will not speak. He is still furious about the armor judgment, the vote that gave Achilles' arms to Odysseus rather than to him, and death has not softened it. Odysseus addresses him, tries to make peace. Ajax turns away in silence and rejoins the other shades. It is the most dignified and the most devastating response available to him, and Homer gives it without comment. Minos sits with the golden scepter judging the dead. This is the one moment in the Homeric underworld that anticipates the moral geography of Dante, a figure of authority determining the status of the shades. It is a single image, not a system. Homer does not build on it. Orion is hunting, still, in the perpetual dark, driving the same animals he drove in life across the fields of asphodel with his bronze club. The great hunter hunting forever, with no quarry that can be caught. This is not punishment. It is simply what Orion is, carried into death unchanged, and therefore rendered permanent, and therefore made melancholy in a way that no punishment could quite achieve. Theseus lies stretched across 9 acres of ground, while 2 vultures tear at his liver for assaulting Leto. The liver regenerates so the tearing can continue. The audience who knows the Prometheus myth will recognize the punishment's structure. Homer is not borrowing from a later tradition. The eagle and the liver are ancient. Tantalus stands in a pool of water up to his chin. When he bends to drink, the water recedes. Above him hang branches heavy with fruit: pear, pomegranate, apple, fig, olive. When he reaches up, the wind blows them out of reach. Tantalus is the emblem of desire eternally frustrated, which is why his name gives us the English word tantalize. Sisyphus rolls his boulder up a slope. When it reaches the top, it rolls back down. He returns to the bottom and begins again. Homer says he rolls it with both hands and both feet, straining, and that sweat pours from his limbs. This is not the elegant existential symbol Camus made of it. This is physical labor that never produces anything, described with the same attention to physical reality Homer brings to everything. Sisyphus is exhausted, the boulder is heavy. He rolls it again. Agamemnon appears, and Odysseus recognizes him. He was murdered in his bath by his wife Clytemnestra and her lover on the night of his return from Troy. He is bitter about it in the specific way of a man who was not warned and cannot get over not having been warned. His counsel to Odysseus is absolute. Trust no woman, not even Penelope. Approach your homecoming with concealment. Verify everything before you reveal yourself. The advice is wrong as applied to Odysseus' situation. The poem's entire design from this point forward is its refutation, built out of scene after scene, demonstrating that Penelope is nothing like Clytemnestra. But the advice is not absurd. Agamemnon has evidence for his position. He simply has the wrong wife. His presence in the Nekyia gives the homecoming plot its stakes. The Odyssey has been using him as a shadow narrative since the first book, and here he speaks directly. Every decision Odysseus makes on Ithaca, the disguise, the patience, the testing of loyalties before the reveal, is the lesson Agamemnon applied correctly to a different situation. Agamemnon failed because he walked in without checking, and Odysseus will not make that mistake. Achilles is here with Patroclus and Antilochus, and Ajax stands nearby, saying nothing. Odysseus greets Achilles as the most blessed of men, honored in life, powerful even among the dead. Achilles tells him not to speak lightly of death. He would rather be the lowest hired laborer alive than king over all the perished dead. The declaration has been noted. What it does is give the Odyssey's argument its most authoritative voice. The man who chose heroic death over ordinary life, given the chance to report from the other side of that choice, asks for his life back. Ajax says nothing. Odysseus addresses him, tries to speak of the armor, offers reconciliation. Ajax turns away and goes back among the shades. He has not forgiven Odysseus, and he will not, and death has left him the only dignity available to him, the refusal to answer. It is, in its way, entirely in character. The dead press forward, thousands of them, the noise of them like 10,000 birds, and Odysseus fears that Persephone will send up the Gorgon's head from the depths. He goes back to the ship. The oarsmen take him across the ocean stream and back toward the world of the living. Next week, the sirens. They are not what the tradition has made of them, not a temptation of the senses, but a temptation of knowledge. They offer total knowledge of everything that's happened at Troy and everything else in the world. The price is your existence. Whether Odysseus' solution, to be lashed to the mast, to hear everything and be unable to act on it, is wisdom or simply a different form of what the sirens offer, is a question the episode does not resolve. I'll see you next Thursday.